very much. Now it's my pleasure to ask Christian Bréchaud from the Institut Pasteur. And Christian, I know you have a presentation to make, so please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews, and thank you to Thierry de Montbrial for the invitation and for setting up this session. I will start with a quote from a Nobel Prize, Sidney Brenner, and he stated that progress in science depends on new techniques, new discoveries, and new ideas, probably in that order. This may be a too strong statement, but it really illustrates that technology is really at the heart of the progress in biomedical research. Now, before moving forward, it's important to emphasize that scientists do need, in the field of biomedical research, infrastructures, equipment, technological platform, and this at several levels. Sequencing, for example, and Mrs. Dr. Zhu will present this for the Beijing Genome Institute, is now a bench-side equipment, and in fact, a lot of it is outsourced in a center such as the Beijing Genome Institute. The key is bioinformatics and integrative biology. But life science and biomedical research has moved to a status which was previously devoted to physics or to chemistry, which is the need to large equipment, such, for example, as this cryo-electron microscopy, at the national level to the synchrotron. And it's interesting to see that about 35% of the activity of the synchrotron Soleil in France is devoted to life science. So it's a complete redistribution of the needs. This in the context, obviously, of connectivity, sharing information, and the major point of automatization and the blend between individual creativity of the scientist and automatization. It is very relevant for the Pasteur Institute. I will not go into detail, which is a large research institute in France, multidisciplinary, 2,500 people, also involved very much in public health, in teaching, and in public-private partnerships. And this in the context of an international network. And in addition to this, and it is really my pleasure, we have initiated with Qatar very interesting collaborations. So in this context, this is an example of what we call the Titan cryo-electron microscopy. This is a new generation of electron microscopy. It costs 10 million euros. It needs a special building. It cannot be decentralized. And it can lead to some informations which are invaluable. This is a picture of, in red, blue, and yellow, of antibodies which bind to the Ebola viral protein. And this image really allows to design new treatments, new diagnostic tests, and new vaccines. And Félix Rey in our institute has recently shown that antibodies to the dengue virus cross-react with antibodies to the Zika virus. And this opens very interesting perspective for prevention and treatment. Another example, you can directly visualize the viral particle of HIV as we never have been able before to do so. So regarding the governance, we really come to a point where each of the research institutes worldwide cannot have all the large infrastructures, and that we need to have networks and of distributed infrastructures. This is the example of the European Molecular Biology Laboratory with facilities in Heidelberg, many platforms, in Grenoble, structural biology, in the UK with bioinformatics, and in Italy with marine biology. And there are other examples, and there will be an increasing number. Now, coming to the sequencing, we know, all of us, that it's a revolution, that the cost has very much declined, and that this has allowed a new appraisal, actually, of the human genome and the implication of disorders of the human genome. But it's always important to remind that you have other technologies I'm not going to detail. This is what we call microfluidic at the Institut Pasteur, and it really allows to set up new immunoassays which are 100 to 1,000 times more sensitive than the current assays. So all this progress has led really to the concretization over the past 15 years of what we call personalized medicine, precision medicine, where we are really able to identify the parameters of an individual, of a single individual among the population, and to design biomarkers for prediction of treatment, efficacy of treatments, side effects. And many analyses show that this can only increase in the future. Already 42% of the new drugs from the companies can be to be personalized, to be targeted on a personal basis. And it comes to 73% for cancer. And we foresee a very significant increase in the future, and it's a topic of large investment for the companies. So we need to put this in the context of the global and One Health perspective. And this slide illustrates a very important move. In the UK, with Genomic England, in the US, with the Precision Medicine Initiative, there is a move to have hundreds of thousands of individuals who are followed up on a prospective basis with all their genome analysis being determined, and this will allow to really have a new insight into global health. The Resilience Project is particularly interesting. The idea is you follow up a cohort of individuals who have mutations, they should have the disease, they don't have the disease. And so the question is the reverse, is why, and which are the components which modulate the impact on the genome of mutations. This is a major turn, this is very demanding, but we need to have these large cohorts. So obviously we need to share this information worldwide, and clearly we have entered the era where technology allows us, and this has been shown in other sessions, to really be beyond, I would say, the goodwill and the talkings, really to mine electronic health records for better research application and clinical care. And as we are all of us aware of, it's about really coming from the data obtained in the individuals to data which are obtained in the laboratory, then integrate the data, and this is the key word in database, and then transfer this to a number of institutions and doctors. And now we have entered the era of large networks which gather, for example, in the US, but we also have this in Europe and in Asia, different hospitals, research institutions, which can share this data. Obviously, this raises a number of questions which can be addressed later. Now, we have entered also the era where large companies are becoming new players, and they provide new software frameworks which have now helped to empower people to take a more active role in their health. This is, for an example, with Apple. This is with Microsoft for respiratory illness. This is with, I cannot read, but in oncology. But I could have cited, obviously, other companies. But this is a major move that the patient is a much more active partner of his or her health through these technologies. We are entered the era of artificial intelligence, deep learning. Facebook is an example. I could cite others. And again, it's about the individual being part of the whole process. Finally, rapid diagnostic tests is a key point of care. There are now disposables which will completely overhaul the way we regulate our tests and the health system. And it goes beyond the diagnostic test. I like this slide which shows the evolution of the stethoscope over the years since the first discovery setting up by Laennec. And we have so sophisticated disposal that, again, we can use them in a very different way. So it's about what Leroy Hood calls predictive, personalized, preventive, and participatory approach to medicine, the famous P4. But we have to be realistic. It's also about personalized, problematic, and promising, because we know that we have several challenges. Reproducibility of the data, this is a key point. If we share, if we transfer data which are not reproducible, this obviously has no value. Economics, questions with regulatory agencies, and ethics, confidentiality of the data, and so on. So the question, and especially for an institute such as the Pasteur Institute, is how really, again, to integrate all this progress in the global and One Health perspective. And it is clear that the Institut Pasteur is very much focused on its international network. 33 institutes now in 26 countries, and we are setting up presently the one in Guinea, in Conakry. So again, rapid diagnostic tests are very important for many countries where we are working, and they are completely changing the pattern of diagnostics. It really allows this connection, test, on-site, communicate, and then act. At Pasteur, we have been working very hard on next-generation diagnostic tests. This is an example of a task force that we have set up following the Ebola crisis. Obviously, I don't want to go into detail. You have several examples of immunoassay and molecular biology-based assay. They share the same concept. They can be performed very rapidly, and again, they can be performed on-site. I'm very proud of this. This is what our students had just recently won at Pasteur, the gold medal at what is called the International Genetically Engineering competition, IGEM, in Boston, engineering competition in Boston. And they have designed a tool to both, on the same apparatus, trap a mosquito, test for the presence of a virus, and share the results throughout the world. And this is how it will stand in the field. So we have a bulk of technologies which allow to work on a centralized organization and also to work on a decentralized organization. So I will skip this up, but just to illustrate again that we provide infrastructure, teaching, on-site capacities in all these countries. But the point I want to make is that the new technologies, the capacity both on-site to generate the data and to share the data, allow to design worldwide a regional and global approach. Again, I don't want to go into detail. These are several scientific consortia which are run globally, be on malaria, on resistance to antibiotics, on a number of pathogens and clinical conditions. And this, we have really entered the era of molecular epidemiologic map of a disease. This is a New England Journal Medicine paper which has been published by 10 Pasteur Institutes working with several partners in many countries, and they provide the first molecular map of resistance to treatment of malaria by what we call artemisinin. This would not have been feasible only 5 years ago. The Institut Pasteur is obviously at the heart of the reaction to a sanitary crisis. And again, all the technologies, be for sequencing, be for sharing the information, are at the heart of the coordination we can set up to meet with all these sanitary emergencies and crises which are listed here. We need to have networks. We need to have networks between different countries, and this is an example of a network which has been supported by the European Commission, which is really about One Health. That means merging the efforts of clinical medicine, veterinary medicine, to really provide a survey of infections and emerging infections in different countries. And this is a good example because you want to establish this network, but then you need the correct technologies to do so. This is another example performed in partnership with the United States, with the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Reaction, which is really, again, on the setting up of networks to prevent and react against sanitary crises, for example, for avian flu, for the influenza. So we have set up now within the international network, this is an example in Cameroon, of novel system architectures and feature of platforms. Platform to generate the data, platform to share the data, and provide early warning systems. So again, it's always the same organization, which is very easy to describe on a slide, very, very difficult to set up actually, where from left to right, you generate the data on site, you merge the data, you integrate the data, and this is really where it comes as difficult, and then you are able to transfer the data. The point I want to make with these slides is that what has been perceived initially only a few years ago as something really which would be only focused, only possible for, say, so-called developed countries, is now absolutely amenable to emerging and developing countries. Finally, this is an important action which, again, illustrates the potential of this evolution. This is what we call the Pasteur Global Health Genomics Center. It means in selected institutes of the network, provides the biobanking capacities, meeting with the regulatory constraints, the ethics, and the economics, and then provide to these selected institutes the capacity to generate data on site, instead of transferring the samples to France, to the US, to other countries. But then to share the data with a computer biology-based information system. And obviously, we cannot do this by ourselves. We are in the era of partnerships. This is a clear example of the need for governing rules. We are interacting with the Gates Foundation on this, with the SAGE Bio-Networks, also with industrial partners. And this is a case where we have to share the information, but also to meet with constraints, obviously, again, with confidentiality, with intellectual property, with overall security. So to close, I would like to shift the topic just for a very few slides on I have nearly finished. But because I believe we need to remain very humble with regard to technologies. There is a very interesting topic, which is the intestinal microbiota. That means we have actually two genomes, our human genome and what we call the bacterial genome, about 1.5 kilograms of bacteria in our intestine. And the interplay between these two genomes is really shaping, actually, our personality, our features, and is very important for a number of diseases, including so-called non-communicable disease, diabetes, obesity, cancer, neurological disorders. Sequencing of the intestinal bacteria was impossible about 10 years ago. The progress in technology in sequencing has led to analyze in detail these populations. And it has contributed to a medical revolution which is ongoing, which is the capacity to transfer the gut microbiota from here one animal to the other and to transfer a given phenotype. But now this is possible in humans. And this is a New England Journal of Medicine paper, very impressive, which shows, the pointer is not working on this screen, but when you have patients with Clostridium difficile, which is a very difficult infection to treat, if you compare in the center those who have received a fecal transplantation, a microbiota transplantation from patients who have recovered from Clostridium difficile, and you compared on the right part those only treated by regular antibiotics, there is a huge difference, and those who receive fecal microbiota from recovered patients recover themselves. So the point I want to make is that this is excellent, but if you look at this, this is really an old concept which has been revisited. It was well known in veterinary medicine, it was well known by the Chinese and during several Chinese dynasties. And so the point is that in some cases, what really technology allows us to do is a reappraisal of old concepts. But this is not a problem. This is at the benefit of the patient. So to close, again, we speak of technology, we speak of automatization, but we should never forget that individuals will be at the heart of creativity. And this is what this slide illustrates when we recruit young scientists. We want them to be modern, but we want them to keep the image of the founder of Louis Pasteur. So this is a painting from Magritte, which name is La Clairvoyance. And I like it because it really shows that technology has made huge progress, huge progress. It is a real revolution. And obviously, I have only shown a part of it. We see the applications. Well, however, we are painting the bird, but we are still looking at the egg. And what we hope for the next years is really to be able to have this transition from the egg to the bird. And this is really what the Institut Pasteur, with the partners, is very much committed to. Thank you very much.
Mille merci, Dr. Brescio, and I'm sure we'll come back to ethics and personalized medicine later when we have the questions.